Hey everyone, welcome back to the TDF Masterclass. Last time, we finally managed to get our hands on some TDF files from our Tiger webshop. Today, we will dive into that download folder to further explain all the file types that we provide so you are sure to use the correct files for each application. As you can maybe see, I have already done the first prep work to get started, being unzipping the download folder we have gotten last time. So now that we're ready, let's jump right in. When entering the folder, first thing you will notice is there is a lot of subfolders depending on how many files or how many products you requested. In our case, it was just two, the one starting with 14 being aquamarine and the one starting with 67 being our highland metallic color. For now, let's have a look at the aquamarine folder. When opening up this one, we will be able to see even more subfolders. And it's important to know that each subfolder has been made with a certain application in mind. First one being AXF. As you already know, the AXF file is the starting point and also the source for all the other files we provide within Digital Finishes. Leading us to our first takeaway. If your 3D program supports AXF, you should use AXF. You will not receive any better representation of our Tiger powder coatings in digital than with the AXF file. A short side note, the AXF folder will look a little bit different in case of our 67 product, which is a metallic, because, as we mentioned in previous videos, there is two separate scan modes, one being the SVBRDF standard scan and the CPA car paint AXF, which is used for metallics. We labeled them differently in their file names, so you notice the difference right away. If at any point you should have an SVBRDF and a CPA file for the same material, always go with the CPA file, as this indicates it being a metallic, making this the correct file. Moving on, when we look at the AXF folder and we take the next folder to the right, we will see graphic design assets. And these are explained really quickly. These are all the graphic design assets that you already know from our web shop, meaning all the static images as well as the product video running on the web shop. We provide these for free download for one reason. If you are working with powder coatings and you want to display the colors that you offer, you can use these images and videos anytime if you want to create promotional material for web or print. Having that out of the way, let's move back and have a look at our third folder, which is called Keyshot. And this also is pretty self-explanatory, as we at Tiger work with Keyshot ourselves in order to create the promotional images you have just seen. We are also able to really quickly convert our AXF files to .kmp files, which is the native material format used by Keyshot. If you are a Keyshot user, feel free to go ahead with this. If you don't use Keyshot, this folder is not necessary for you. Short side note for all the Keyshot users out there that ask themselves, why use the KMP file instead of the AXF file that is also natively supported in Keyshot? This has one key reason. In one of our past lessons, I mentioned that the CPA scans we need to use to scan metallic finishes is not really good at picking up textures. That's why when we want to render these colors, we need to add the textures afterwards. And this is a step we have already taken in Keyshot to provide our visualizations. Meaning, using the KMP saves you the step of adding the normal maps to the CPA scans manually. All right, moving on. Seamless thumbnails. With those, the explanation is also quite simple. Even though AXF is a very advanced format that allows to create detailed visualization of a material, not every program, especially when you work with older versions, is able to fully support this format. Over the past months and even years, we had many requests from customers asking for so-called tileable images, meaning they were not able to support 3D formats like the KMP file or the AXF file, but their software was just able to work with a JPEG or a PNG, a simple image file that is laid on top of a surface. And this is what we try to cover with this. You can see there is 3 images for the same color, all with different resolution, the low res one being 480 by 480, the mid res being 1080 by 1080, and the high res one being 4320 by 4320 pixels. This, of course, is a nice to have in case of unicolors, but becomes especially important when we work with metallics. As you may or may not know, that it's not possible to really work with textures in that regard. Having the metallic sparkle embedded directly into the pre-rendered image maybe doesn't enable you to create photorealistic reflection behavior simulations, but it offers some way to visualize the effect, which, when there's no other options, is of course still better than nothing. Having seamless thumbnails out of the way, this brings us to our next folder, simply called Textures. And this one is particularly important for everyone familiar with the PBR material workflow. Described simply, here we provide all the properties of a material that we discussed in previous videos, like color, gloss, reflection behavior, and so on and so forth, as separate image files. Here you can choose between EXR files and PNG files. Usually EXR is preferred as it has a higher image quality, but if it's not supported by your software, you can also opt for PNG. Diving into that folder, here you will be able to see all the properties provided by us per default, including the diffuse color, the displacement, the normal map, a roughness map, and also a specular color for the material that you requested. What's important to note is we just started including those textures as well for sepia or metallic colors, but please note that depending on the degree of sparkle, the maps can and will be distorted to some degree. As we mentioned, the scan mode used to generate all these maps is not tailored towards metallic finishes. Alright, I hope your head's not smoking already. We have one more folder to go, which would be the Unreal Engine one. And this is very exciting because this is a new addition to the TDF portfolio. Since recently, Epic Games, the makers behind Unreal Engine, have released a plugin that allows to convert AXF files to Unreal materials. Currently, this still runs as a beta, but we at Tiger have been one of the first providers to actually jump on that train and convert all of our digital finishes that we already have to that file type. Note that in order to import the AXF to UE file, as it is called here, you need a separate plugin within Unreal Engine. And of course, as this is in a beta phase, this is all subject to change. However, we will update you here on this channel if there's any meaningful changes that you would need to know about. Yeah, and that's basically all. Thank you so much for listening. I hope I was able to clear up some confusion about the file types that we offer. If there's any more questions, feel free to get back to me in the comments or read the PDF file that we have put into each download folder, also describing what I just talked about. I hope I see you again in one of our next videos where we plan to do detailed tutorials on how to use TDF within different software products like Keyshot, Unreal, VRED, and so on and so forth. Let me know what would be your favorite from those. See you then.